Reading Marcovaldo by Italo Calvino. Summer 14. Moon and GNAC. The night lasted 20 seconds. Then came 20 seconds of GNAC. For 20 seconds you could see the blue sky streaked with black clouds, the gilded sickle of the waxing moon, outlined by an impalpable halo, and stars that, the more you looked at them, the denser their poignant smallness became. To the sprinkle of the Milky Way, all this seen in great haste. Every detail you dwelt on was something of the whole that you lost, because the 20 seconds quickly ended and the GNAC took over. The GNAC was part of the neon sign Spock Cognac on the roof opposite, which shone for 20 seconds, then went off for 20, and when it was lighted you couldn't see anything else. The moon suddenly faded, the sky became a flat uniform black, the stars lost their radiance, and the cats, male and female, that for 10 seconds had been letting out howls of love, moving languidly toward each other along the drain pipes and the roof trees, squatted on their tiles, their fur bristling in the phosphorescent neon light. Leaning out of the attic where they lived, Marcovaldo's family was traversed by conflicting trains of thought. It was night, and Isolina, a big girl now, felt carried away by the moonlight. Her heart yearned, and even the faintest croaking of a radio from the lower floors of the building came to her like the notes of a serenade. There was the GNAC, and that radio seemed to take on a different rhythm, a jazz beat, and Isolina thought of the dance hall full of blazing lights and herself, poor thing, up here all alone. Petruchio and Michelino stared wide-eyed into the night and let themselves be invaded by a warm, soft fear of being surrounded by forests full of brigands. Then, GNAC! And they sprang up with thumbs erect and forefingers extended one against the other. Hands up, I'm the Lone Ranger! Domitilla, their mother, every time the light was turned off, thought, now the children must be sent to bed. This air could be bad for them, and Isolina shouldn't be looking out of the window at this hour. It's not proper. But then everything was again luminous, electric, outside and inside, and Domitilla felt as if she were paying a visit to the home of someone important. Fiordaligi, on the contrary, a melancholy youth, every time the GNAC went off, saw the dimly lighted window of a garret appear behind the curl of the G, and beyond the pane the face of a moon-colored girl, neon-colored, the color of light in the night, a mouth still almost a child's, that the moment he smiled at her, parted imperceptibly and seemed almost to open in a smile. Then all of a sudden, from the darkness, that implacable G of GNAC burst out again, and the face lost its outline, was transformed into a weak, pale shadow, and he could no longer tell if the girlish mouth had responded to his smile. In the midst of this storm of passions, Marcovaldo was trying to teach his children the positions of the celestial bodies. That's the great bear, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there the tail, and that's the little bear, and the pole star, that means north. What does that one mean over there? It means sea, but that doesn't have anything to do with the stars. It's the last letter of the word cognac. The stars mark the four cardinal points, north, south, east, west. The moon's hump is to the west, hump to the west, waxing moon, hump to the east, waning moon. Is cognac waning, Papa? The sea's hump is to the east. Waxing and waning have nothing to do with that. It's a sign the Spock Company has put there. What company put up the moon, then? The moon wasn't put up by any company. It's a satellite, and it's always there. If it's always there, why does it keep changing its hump? It's the quarters. You only see a part of it. You only see a part of cognac, too, because the roof of the Pier Bernardini building is higher than the moon, and so every time the GNAC came on, Marcovaldo's stars became mixed up with terrestrial commerce, and Isolina transformed a sigh into a low humming of a mambo, and the girl of the garret disappeared in that cold and dazzling arc, hiding her response to the kiss that Fiordaligi had finally summoned the courage to blow her on his fingertips, and Filippetto and Michelino, their fists to their faces, played it strafing, tat-tat-tat-tat, against the glowing sign, which after its 20 seconds went off. "Tat-tat-tat! Did you see that, Papa? I shot it out with just one burst," Filippetto said, but already outside the neon light his warlike mania had vanished, and his eyes were filling with sleep. "If only you had," his father blurted. "If only it had been blown to bits. I'd show you Leo the Lion, the twins. Leo the Lion! Michelino was overcome with enthusiasm. Wait, he had an idea. He took his slingshot, loaded it with gravel, of which he always carried a reserve pocketful, and fired a volley of pebbles with all his strength at the GNAC. They heard the shower fall, scattered on the tiles of the roof opposite, on the tin of the drain pipes, the tinkle of the panes of a window that had been struck, the gong of a pebble plunging down on the metal shield of a street light, a voice from below. It's raining stones! Hey, you up there, hoodlum! But at that very moment of the shooting, the neon sign had turned off at the end of its 20 seconds, and everyone in the attic room began counting mentally. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, up to 20. They counted 19, held their breath. They counted 20. They counted 21, 22, for fear of having counted too fast. But no, not at all. The GNAC didn't come on again. It remained a black curlicue, hard to decipher, twined around its scaffolding like a vine around a pergola. Ah! They all shouted, and the hood of the sky rose, infinitely starry above them. Marcovaldo, his hand frozen halfway towards the slap he meant to give Michelino, felt as if he had been flung into space. The darkness that now reigned at roof level made a kind of obscure barrier that shut out the world below, where yellow and green and red hieroglyphics continued to whirl, and the winking of eyes of traffic lights, and the luminous navigation of trams, and the invisible cars that that cast in front of them the bright cone of their headlights. From this world only a diffuse phosphorescence rose up this high, vague as smoke, and raising your eyes no longer blinded, you saw the perspective of space unfold, the constellations expanded in depth, the firmament turning in every direction, a sphere that contains everything and is contained by no boundary, and only a thinning of its weft, like a breach opened towards Venus, to make it stand out alone over the frame of the earth, with its steady slash of light exploded and concentrated at one point. Suspended in this sky, the new moon, rather than display the abstract appearance of a half-moon, revealed its true nature as an opaque sphere, its whole outline illuminated by the oblique rays of a sun the earth had lost, though it retained, as you can see only on certain early summer nights, its warm color. And Marcovaldo, looking at that narrow shore of moon cut there between shadow and light, felt a nostalgia, as if yearning to arrive at a beach which had stayed miraculously sunny in the night. And so they remained at the window of the garret, the children frightened by the measureless consequences of their act, Isolina carried away as if in ecstasy, Fiordaligi, who, alone among all, discerned the dimly lighted garret and finally the girl's lunar smile. Their mamma recovered herself. Come on now, it's night. What are you doing at the window? You'll catch something in this moonlight. Michelino aimed his slingshot up high. Now I'll turn off the moon! He was seized and put to bed. And so, for the rest of that night and all through the night following, the neon sign on the other roof said only "Spacco," and from Marcovaldo's garret you could see the firmament. Fiordaligi and the lunar girl blew each other kisses, and perhaps speaking to each other in sign language, they would manage to make a date to meet. But on the morning of the second day, on the roof, in the scaffolding that supported the neon sign, the tiny forms of two electricians in overalls were visible, as they checked the tubes and wires. With the air of old men who predict changes in the weather, Marcovaldo stuck his head out and said, "Tonight there'll be GNAC again." Somebody knocked at the garret. They opened the door. It was a gentleman wearing eyeglasses. "I beg your pardon. Could I take a look at your window? Thanks." And he introduced himself. "Goffredo, neon advertising agent." "We're ruined. They want us to pay the damages," Marcovaldo thought, and he was already devouring his children with his eyes, forgetting his astronomical transports. Now he'll look at the window and realize the stones could only have come from here. He tried to ward this off. "You know how it is. The kids shoot at the sparrows, pebbles. I don't know how that SPAC sign went out, but I punished them all right. Oh, yes, indeed, I punished them. And you can be sure it won't happen again." Signor Goffredo's face became alert. "Actually, I'm employed by Tomahawk Cognac, not by SPAC. I had come to examine the possibility of a sign on this roof, but do go on. I'm interested in what you're saying." And so it was that Marcovaldo, half an hour later, concluded a deal with Tomahawk Cognac, Spock's chief rival. The children should empty their slingshots at the GNAC every time the sign was turned on again. That should be the straw that will break the camel's back, Signor Godofredo said. He was not mistaken. Already on the verge of bankruptcy because of its large advertising outlay, Spock and Company took the constant damaging of its most beautiful neon signs as a bad omen. The sign that now sometimes said cognac and sometimes cognac or conch spread among the firm's creditors the impression of financial difficulties. At a certain point, the advertising agency refused to make further repairs if arrears were not paid. The turned-off sign increased the alarm among the creditors, and SPAC went out of business. In the sky of Marcovaldo, the full moon shone round in all its splendor. It was in the last quarter when the electricians came back to clamber over the roof opposite. And that night, in letters of fire, letters twice as high and broad as before, they could read Tomahawk Cognac, and there was no longer moon or firmament or sky or night, only Tomahawk Cognac, Tomahawk Cognac, Tomahawk Cognac, which blinked on and off every 2 seconds. The worst hit was Fiordaligi. The garret of the lunar girl had vanished behind an enormous, impenetrable W.